And I don't know if you guys know this, but 20 years ago, we were supposed to get married. And it kind of all fell apart.
Hello, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to group chat. Today, I really want to talk about Jennifer Lopez, because Jennifer Lopez, despite of what you may think of her, she is an icon. I mean, she has been around for so many years, and that doesn't just happen out of luck. Whether you like to admit it or not, Jennifer Lopez really can do it all. She can dance, she can sing, she can act, she's beautiful, and she has an amazing work ethic. Through these 20+ years of her being famous, she's had really public highs and very public lows. Something that's going on with her right now is very interesting to me, because why does it seem like JLo's whole life is falling apart? Her career, her personal life, her romantic life, it all just seems like it's crumbling down on top of her. All of her projects that she's been doing for the past year or 2 years, nothing seems to stick. Not in music, not in acting, and not in her personal life, which is something that I really want to focus on today, because she has had quite the public record of husbands, boyfriends, fiancés, and just recently she got engaged to the love of her life, Ben Affleck. So today I want to take a deep dive on how fame has really been her greatest ally, but also her biggest enemy. And it seems like she's constantly trying to chase after this thing, whether it's in love or in her projects or in her movies or in her music, and it's not really clear on like what it is that she's after, because right now it seems like she had finally gotten to the point in her career where it's like, how much higher can you go? She has her 2 kids, and she finally is with the love of her life, Ben Affleck. So why is everything falling apart? Before we can get into any of that, I think we should take a look down memory lane and really think about like, who is Jennifer Lopez? Who is Jenny from the block? Starting off, Jennifer Lopez's rise to fame was really quick. I mean, she became famous really fast, and she landed really big roles early on in her career. And really at that time, there was nobody else like Jennifer Lopez. She's oftentimes compared to Mariah Carey in the sense of, obviously she's not talented in singing like Mariah Carey, but they kind of looked similar at that time, and they had similar like body types, and maybe like were kind of put into the same box of like, they don't look like everybody else, even though their talents were completely different. As you can imagine, at that time it wasn't as easy to become an artist as maybe it is today. There was no YouTube, there was no TikTok, there was no way of like really putting your music out there to like the world unless you were signed to a company. And of course, we all know that Sony was one of the biggest companies at that time, and arguably one of the ones that had the most power and influence in the music industry. Mariah Carey was married to the head of Sony, Tommy Mottola. Tommy also signed Jennifer Lopez to Sony, and a lot of people think that this is also like where this feud and this drama begins, because Mariah Carey and Jennifer Lopez were really put as rivals against each other, and this only intensified when Mariah Carey divorced her husband, and it was said that he started to do things inside the music industry to kind of like work against Mariah Carey. He would take songs that were supposed to go to Mariah and he would give them to Jennifer. So there's a lot of conspiracy behind how Jennifer like rose to fame, and I think that a lot of the feud that we saw with Mariah Carey and Jennifer Lopez came from this, because it wasn't just professional, it was a lot of like personal feelings involved in this too, because we're talking about Mariah Carey's ex-husband using his power, his influence to work against her professional life, and putting this other artist who's up and coming, beautiful, also talented, against his ex-wife just out of like pure spite. I do think that there's one thing that you can't take away from her, and it's like her work ethic. She may not be the best singer, she may not be the best actress, all of that is subjective, but you simply do not make it 20+ years in this industry if you don't have a very strong work ethic. So I think that for Mariah to say that her sleeping 8 hours a night is because she doesn't have to worry about using her own voice. I mean, it's a low blow, but I understand it. At the same time, I understand Mariah was hurt and she was taking out her anger with Tommy onto Jennifer Lopez. And at the time, like, do you blame her? She's like fresh on the scene. She's signed to Sony. I'm sure at the time she didn't have the power to say no. And I'm sure she didn't even know like the things that were going on, because if I'm Jennifer Lopez and head of Sony says to me, this is the next song that I want you to put out, how am I supposed to know that that was supposed to be Mariah's song? And also, like, how do I go against my record label and tell them like, oh no, like I don't want problems with Mariah, like I don't want to do that song? I don't think women or any artist at that time had the power to really say things like that and to say no to the people above them. So do we blame her for that, really? Regardless, because she has always been in the spotlight, whether it's because of like who she's dating, her looks, the clothes that she wears, like that famous green Versace dress, her personal life and her public life have always been very meshed together. And that happens a lot whenever you are the personality, you are the singer, you are the actor, when your brand is you. And undeniably, one of the things that she is most famous for is definitely her romantic life. She's been engaged 6 times, she's been married 4, she's had multiple boyfriends, and she's just had a very public love life, and it just seems like none of it has ever really like worked. Her history of an unstable romantic life has been widely publicized. It's said that fame can magnify both our strengths and our weaknesses, and we've definitely seen this with Jennifer Lopez, because her personal life has always been under the microscope, and that pressure of being in the public eye can definitely strain any relationship, and for her it's been no different. The difference is that, like her, many people are famous and they do have these longer marriages, longer relationships. They have more stable romantic lives. They go on to have children and stay with their partners. With Jennifer Lopez, it really hasn't been that story. And for a lot of people, that's no issue, but it seems like this is something that Jennifer really wants. And it's almost like because she wants this so bad, it's what's been working against her all of these years. I think it's important to go through a brief history, a crash course on all of Jennifer's public relationships since the time that she's been famous. So from 1997 to 1998, she was married to Ojani Noah, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, who was a Cuban waiter. Their marriage lasted just over a year. At that time, she wasn't really that famous, of course, how she is now. She then went on in 1999 to date Sean Combs, also known as P. Diddy. Their relationship was marked by legal troubles and very, very high profile media coverage. Their relationship actually ended because they got into some legal trouble because they had an altercation in a nightclub, and I think that she noticed that maybe the life that Puff Daddy was living was not really aligned with like what she wanted for herself, and that relationship ended. From 2001 to 2003, she was married to Chris Judd, who was a backup dancer, and they met on the set of her music video, and they married very, very quickly, but the marriage ended within 2 years. So from 2001 to 2003, she was married to Chris Judd, and during that time, they got married and divorced. During that same time, in 2002 to 2004, she dated and was engaged to Ben Affleck. And there is some overlap on the dates because she just has never ever really been alone. During that time, from 2002 to 2004, she dated and was engaged to Ben Affleck, and they called off their wedding in 2003 and ended up splitting in 2004. Later on, Ben and Jennifer will say that Ben called off the wedding 3 days before they were supposed to actually have their wedding. Everything was planned, everything was paid for. They had like 14 ushers, 14 bridesmaids. It was gonna be like the whole shebang, and he called off the wedding 3 days before, which he claims to be because of a lot of the attention and how public it was and just the pressure of it all, which is very important to remember because this will be important as we go along in this video. After splitting from Ben Affleck, she married Mark Anthony in 2004 and they were married until 2011. So I just said they split in early 2004. Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck split in early 2004. And in 2004, she married Mark Anthony. Not even a year had gone by and she was already married to Mark Anthony. Now, important thing to note here, Mark Anthony was actually her longest relationship and marriage. They were together from 2004 to 2011 and that is who she had children with, her only 2 kids. In the same year that she divorced from Mark Anthony, she began dating her backup dancer, Casper Smart, which was a very, very public relationship, and they were together from 2011 to 2016. This relationship was really one of like the stranger ones to me because after being in a very long relationship with Mark Anthony, someone that was maybe like on her level career-wise, economically, age, she started to date someone who was her backup dancer, who was a lot younger than her, who didn't really like meet her anywhere near like where she was on any type of measure, on any type of level, but they were together for like 5 years. Of course, this dynamic was very different than any of her other relationships. I'm sure she was the one that paid for everything, and given the fact that JLo is kind of known to be very controlling, I'm sure that's why this lasted for so long. Her and Casper Smart officially end in 2016, and in that same year, in 2016 through 2017, she briefly dated Drake. That did not last very long. And in 2017, she dated and was engaged to Alex Rodriguez.
We're alike, but except I can't sing, dance, act, and I don't look like her. Besides that, we're twins.
They ended their engagement in 2001. No one really knows why, but in that same year, in 2001, she rekindled her relationship with Ben Affleck. It's even come out that she would receive letters from Ben Affleck while she was engaged to Alex Rodriguez. Ultimately, it said that her and Alex broke up because he was cheating on her or he was like messaging somebody else. But her and Alex Rodriguez split in 2021, and in 2021 she started to date Ben Affleck. I don't know if you're noticing a pattern here, but there has not been one single year where this woman has been single. Not one single year. Like no consecutive 12 months has she ever been single from 1997. She has always claimed that her craziness in relationships and jumping from one relationship to the other is because she has always been trying to like fill the void of not having Ben in her life.
Ben came in and he got down on one knee and he said some things that I'll never forget. And then he pulled out a ring and he said, "Will you marry me?"
And I don't know if you guys know this, but 20 years ago, we were supposed to get married.
I'd read that.
And it,
Yeah.
and it kind of all fell apart back then. And this time it was like, we still had I absolutely did, had a little PTSD. And so I was just like, is this happening? Is this really happening? And we were so happy. And of course it was happening, but I just felt like the wedding was so stressful. And one day Ben just says, okay, let's just go to Vegas and get married tonight. And
they got back together in 2021 and they got married in July of 2022. And then they had a second ceremony in August 2022. It is now July 2024. It's been basically 2 years since they got married in Vegas on a whim. And there are very strong rumors that they are getting a divorce. And I hate to say this because I really wanted this for her. Like, there were so many people that were like, ugh, like how long is this gonna last? Like, I give it 6 months, I give it 1 year. And I was really one of the people that was like, no, like this is it. Like, this is why she's had such a crazy romantic life. This is why she's been so, like, what are you doing with your life, J-Lo? Because she was always looking to fill the void with Ben. Like, I was really rooting for this, okay? I was rooting for this relationship. I wanted it to work. I wanted this to be her happy ending. And I think that she wanted this to be her happy ending more than, like, really working through the relationship itself. Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck were once Hollywood's hottest couple, and the media was absolutely obsessed with them. But is it the same in 2024, or is this just a case of nostalgia? Because I feel like the brain can really play tricks on us, and sometimes we don't remember the relationship or the person for what it was, but we remember like what that time in our life was. And at that time, Jennifer Lopez was in a very, very different place than she is now. She was a lot younger, she was a lot newer in her career, and she was really at the top of her game. I mean, she was, for someone that is obsessed with being famous, she was at the top of being famous. Like, she was the most A-list celebrity out of everyone, and I don't think she can say the same now.
The reason why Jennifer Lopez is falling off because the bulk of her industry plan is falling off. It's not being watered no more. Nobody cares. You have to understand, Jennifer Lopez was just never a girl that was genuinely introduced to the scene because of her talent. She was produced out of spite. She was supposed to go against everything that Mariah Carey had. So she was handpicked and given the staple package. She was given the accolades. She was given the hit songs, the hit producers. And this is a fact. 90% of what J-Lo was singing when she first came out, it wasn't J-Lo, it was Ashanti. And that was always like a no topic within the industry, but facts is fact. So it's kind of like her celebrityism was hijacked. She was told to the public she was supposed to be the star, but genuinely nobody really just invested into her. So fast forward now, the reason people are not buying concert tickets or not buying her albums and her records is flopping because she never truly had a genuine fan base that connected with her. People were just told they were supposed to like her, and it did what it needed to do back in the day, but now the plant of the industry is not being watered and it's dying down.
And it makes me think, does she miss Ben? Has she really been in love with Ben all these years? Or was she in love with the idea of the relationship that they had 20 years ago? Because the attention that they get now is not the attention that they got 20 years ago. And for Ben, he maybe thought that this would be something good for them. But Jennifer wasn't able to just accept the relationship for what it was. She had to turn it into a movie. She had to turn it into an album. She had to turn it into a documentary, which we're gonna get into all of these things. But it really makes me think that it wasn't really Ben that she was after all these years. It was that feeling of being the most famous couple in the world, the people that got the most attention, and Ben. In the past year, she has made like 3 or 4 movies / documentaries and an album. She made The Greatest Love Story Never Told, and then she also made This Is Me Now. This is Me Now, the album, which is like the second album to her This Is Me album that she made when she was with Ben. So This Is Me Now, the album, is basically like the love story and her feelings and like all of the things about being with Ben again, which is like, it's fine. Like, you're a singer, like, I get it. You want to make your music, nothing wrong with that. But then she made This Is Me Now, the movie, which is basically like this weird, like futuristic musical where she plays her, and like that one is really like, I haven't watched it. Like, I need to watch it so I can do a deep dive, but just from the trailer, it looks interesting. And then she also made a documentary about making that movie because she self-funded it. No one believed in it, not even her husband. She has made 4 different projects out of this love story, and they've literally only been together for like 2 years. Which is one of the reasons why people are kind of confused, because if she had been married, let's say, to Ben for 10 years at least, and she made this movie called The Greatest Love Story Never Told, people might have like a different reaction. It might be like, oh, like we didn't know this, or like, oh my gosh, so many like things that we didn't know about them, like how cute. But no, she makes 3, 4 movies, an album, and 2 years in, they're about to get a divorce. And on top of that, she also did a movie for Netflix called Marry Me, which is also about a pop star that has like love issues. I mean, it is really hard. Like, I don't know whose idea all this was, but just like from a marketing perspective, it's really hard to differentiate the 4 or 5 projects from each other. And even like me talking about this right now, I'm a little confused because it's the same storyline. J-Lo played by J-Lo, by J-Lo, for J-Lo. Ben Affleck appears in the documentary about the greatest love story never told because it's literally about him and J-Lo. And he says,
in the fact that it's the greatest love story never told, and if you're making a record about it, that seems kind of like telling it.
And he's saying this in the documentary, but it's because she made the album and she made the movie and then she made the other movie and then she made the other movie and the other movie and the other movie. He recalls being really surprised to learn that his wife, Jennifer Lopez, was showing her co-writers and the producers the actual love letters that he'd sent her. He said,
on that first day, I showed everybody this book. This book is a book that Ben gave me on our first Christmas back together. It is every letter and every email that we wrote to each other from 20 years ago and today. It became like our Bible, and we just left it there in the studio.
Ben questioned her and asked, you've been showing all of the musicians all those letters? Yeah, we call you Pen Affleck. In the documentary, he basically says how he was like embarrassed that she was actually showing his actual love letters. I mean, this is a man that was married for 13 years to Jennifer Gardner, had kids with her, and we didn't ever really know anything about them. And I think that he likes it like that. He's a very private person. I mean, I wouldn't want my personal love letters that I wrote to my husband to be shown to, you know, like tens of people who are producers, who are in Hollywood, who may go tell somebody else. I just wouldn't want that as a private person, and Ben didn't want that either. She then goes on to say, I don't think he's very comfortable with me doing all this. Girl, if you know your husband is not comfortable with you sharing all his private information, why don't you keep him out of it? I think there's a really big difference between being the muse and putting my private life out there. Because if I'm the muse, I think there's a way of you using me, maybe telling the love story without having to put in all of like my private details. Because why didn't you show them just your love letters? Like, why didn't you just tell them maybe like the idea of what the love letters said? In this same interview, he goes on to say something that's really interesting and something that a lot of psychologists and a lot of people have now coined J-Lo as, and that is as a love addict. It's interesting coming from Ben because Ben is an addict himself. Of course, he's not addicted to love, he's addicted to other things, but I think that one addict can easily recognize another, and it doesn't really matter like what they're addicted to. He says, Jen felt emotionally neglected as a child. We're kind of learning more and more that it doesn't have to be the kind of trauma where you're locked in a basement for a year to leave wounds on you. He says, in fact, they're deceptive and they're harder to pin down. It's a hard thing to look at somebody whose professional life is wildly successful and on Instagram looks like they're living the happiest life in the world. The thing you discover, like you do with alcohol, is that there isn't enough alcohol in all of the liquor stores in the world to fill up that thing. And in Jennifer's case, I don't think there's enough followers or movies or records or any of that stuff to fill that part of you that still feels a longing and pain. Ultimately, that's the work that you've got to do on your own. From my own personal experience, I think that the people that are the most productive, the most ambitious, the most successful in their careers are usually people who have a very strong drive, and it doesn't always come from like a very sane place. I think usually people want to keep their minds occupied because they don't want to give themselves the time to really think and to sit with themselves. One of the busiest people that I know is someone that has literally said that an occupied mind can't be depressed. And while I do think that there is a good side of that, where like if you give yourself too much time, too much leisure, too much excess of time, kind of like the saying goes with people that win the lottery or something like that, it's very easy to become depressed. But on the other hand, there are people who fill their days with things to do, people to see, events to go to, and they're constantly coming up with projects, and it's because they don't want to sit with themselves. They're scared to be alone, and in Jennifer's case, we can really see that she has really never ever been alone. And I think it's important to note that Ben really sees her for who she is, and he can like see past this Jennifer Lopez that we have like out in the world, and he really sees her for who she is. And what he sees is a person who is addicted to the fame, addicted to the noise, addicted to the projects and the people and the followers and the constant buzz, because she doesn't want to sit with herself. I think that sometimes we as a society don't want to understand that you can literally be addicted to anything. I have a cousin that was literally addicted to Coca-Cola, like the drink. People are addicted to coffee, people are addicted to Coca-Cola. In Jennifer Lopez's case, she is addicted to love. And it might be weird to think about, but when you really look at the facts, like it really does seem like it's a problem. And this is a really big problem because there is such a important period when you jump from one relationship to the other, and it's this period where you need to be alone and you need to reflect and you need to be with yourself and you need to understand what went wrong in that relationship and what did I like and what did I not like and what do I want for my next one. And that is something that Jennifer just has never ever had. Although she's very, very successful in her professional life, there are two separate things. And I can say also with this person that I'm saying is the most successful person I know in my personal life, it's the same thing. Their professional life is just amazing. Like you look at them and you say, wow, like I admire this person. But in their personal life, it's like, what are you doing? I don't think anyone in their sane mind would want to have 4 marriages, 6 engagements, and now be possibly allegedly getting divorced from the love of her life. It's so damaging to ourselves to not be able to be alone. The best thing that you can do for yourself is literally learn how to be alone, learn how to love yourself, how to love hanging out with yourself, how to have your own life. And when you do meet someone, then it's a choice whether you want to bring this person into this already like fulfilled life that you have and not make them your entire life. From Ben's side, he did try to have a type of like compromise relationship where like I'll meet you in the middle. He has even confessed that he was not really interested on appearing in her social media, or that he didn't really want to have like a public relationship this time around. But ultimately he understands that this is kind of just what comes with the territory of being with someone as famous as J-Lo. And this brings me to my next point, which is choosing the wrong partner. In this case, I feel like this almost goes more for like Ben than it goes for Jennifer, but it ultimately affects both of them. And why do we choose the wrong partner? When someone tells you up front, if someone were to tell me I hate dogs, but because I love you so much, I guess I'll put up with your dog, I would be like, no, like I don't want someone who's just gonna like put up with my dog. Like my dog is one of like the most important things in my life. I want someone that's gonna be just as excited to go out with the dog, and I want someone who's just as excited and loving with my dog as I am. So for Ben to go into this relationship and say, I don't want to be in the public eye, I don't want to be on social media, I don't want to be the center of attention, but I guess because I love you, I'll put up with it. That is like the biggest red flag ever. They both should have known that this wasn't gonna work out from like day one, because as much as you can compromise on certain things, when it's a lifestyle choice, like for example, my dog requires a lot of attention. You have to walk the dog in the morning, you have to give it food, you have to walk it during the day, you have to walk it at night. The dog most of the time sleeps with me, like in my bed. It would be a lot for someone to put up with if they really hated dogs. Every time that I would have to like walk the dog, or I needed help walking the dog, they would kind of like start to resent me a little bit. And in Ben's case, we're talking about every single time that Jennifer Lopez like walks outside of her door, it is just a mass of paparazzi, of people that want pictures, of fans. On social media, everything that they do is photographed, videographed, put on socials, put in magazines. Everything is like a headline. Ben himself has even said, when Jen and I broke up before, speaking about when they broke up in 2002, the catalyst for that was this massive amount of scrutiny around our private life. I had a very firm sense of boundaries initially around the press. While Jen, I don't think, objected to it the way that I did, I very much did object to it, he explains. He says, getting back together, I said, listen, one of the things I don't want is a relationship on social media. And then he says, then I sort of realized it's not a fair thing to ask. It's sort of like when you're gonna marry a boat captain and you go, well, I don't like the water. We're just two people with different approaches trying to learn to compromise. Compromise would be J-Lo maybe saying, okay, let me tone it down a little bit because I want to be able to give at least our private life, you know, some privacy. What did she do? She said, oh, you don't want things to be public? Let me just give producers and writers your love letters, a whole book of your love letters. Then let me make a movie and then another movie and then a documentary and then an album about it. There's not really a compromise there. Like, what is the compromise? And it's all in the basis of, oh, well, he loves me. Well, he loves me, so he's not gonna hold me back from being the artist that I want to be. He loves me, so he needs to understand that this is just who I am. And that's not really how relationships work. And it's not how relationships should work. Now, should someone hold you back from advancing in your career? No, they shouldn't. But does someone have the right, your partner, to tell you, I don't really want you to use like our private life as content? Literally, like, I don't want you to use our private life as content. I feel like that's very fair. That's a very fair thing to ask. I'm making this video, you are watching me. He has the right to tell me, don't say certain things about me or our lives on the internet. There are just certain things that you cannot compromise on, and one of the things is lifestyle and career choices. If you are not okay with your husband being in a nightclub every single night, then you probably should not be married to a DJ. Ultimately, I do believe that one of the main factors that have brought Jennifer Lopez to this point and ultimately marrying Ben Affleck and having her whole world kind of come crashing down on her is her inability to be alone. And that is a very hard pill to swallow, especially as a 50-something-year-old. You're talking about this woman has lived more than 50% of her life, and she still has not been able to be alone, to be single. And it's something that we can see in her relationship patterns, where she jumps from one relationship to the other, to the other, to the other. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. And one of the biggest things that you can do to avoid this and to ultimately land the husband or the partner that you do want is to spend time alone. Spend time alone, get to know yourself, develop your relationship with yourself, with those around you, so that when you do meet a man, your whole life doesn't become them. Another big lesson that I see in this Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck story is choosing the right partner, someone that you're not only compatible with personality wise but also lifestyle. I see so many relationships where one person wants to just settle down and have kids, the other person wants to travel the world, so neither of them are having their needs met. And ultimately, they may last 5, 10, 20 years, but during that time, there will be some resentment, and ultimately, the relationship, you will feel that. Ultimately, J-Lo and Ben might be a classic example of this mismatch, struggling to find middle ground between their different needs and personalities. I think that they both will and are trying to make it work, and I honest to God hope that this does work out for them, but it is not going to work unless J-Lo changes. And I just want all of us to learn from their mistakes, become better versions of ourselves, do the inner work, and create those relationships that we ultimately want, because they don't happen overnight. They don't happen by magic. They take a lot of work, and they take a lot of self-work more than anything, because ultimately if you are not whole, you cannot be in a relationship, at least a healthy one. Like, at the end of the day, we need to remember that although they are celebrities, they're rich, they're famous, they are humans at the end of the day, and we all struggle. So with this video, as much as I want to, you know, kind of criticize and learn from J-Lo's mistakes, I also want to just lend out like some positive words, that I do believe that she really changed the world for us Latinas. And I really looked up to J-Lo for a really long time. She's not perfect, she's not the greatest singer, the greatest actress, but ultimately she's never really done anything to harm anyone, and I don't think it's right to, you know, just bully up on someone because it's just what's trending on social media. But I do believe that we can learn from other people's mistakes. If anything, her resilience is honestly very inspiring, and I don't agree with having, you know, 4 engagements, 6 marriages, but I do applaud the fact that she has never given up on love. Although, J-Lo, we need to look into your addiction, because that might be a whole other issue. Anyways, if you found this video helpful, if you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below, what do you think? Do you think J-Lo and Ben will make it? Is this just another one of J-Lo's marriages, or is this finally the love of her life, her happy ending, her fairy tale? I would love to know, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.